Welcome to my video on drawing faces. So I'm just going to be doing a tutorial to help simplify face shapes and figure out ways to kind of memorize different parts of the face and make it easier to draw. Kind of create little mnemonics or helpful ways to not draw from reference and just create your own face based in your head. So if you're a beginner, I've got here some pictures for reference. This is definitely important if you're new to drawing or you don't have a lot of confidence yet in imagining faces on your own. This is helpful just to start out, especially even for experienced artists. What often happens if you don't use reference for a while is a lot of your faces kind of start to look the same. Okay, so this is a good side angle. Now, it's important to learn. I would recommend starting out with just something like this here. So just learning to draw straight on, and that'll help you figure out the basics before you move on to more complicated angles, which distorts the face as we know it, and it sets you up with a good way just to kind of know the placements and everything. So generally speaking, there's sort of a rule to how a face is lined out. So you've got the neck, which is right here, and then everyone has a different face shape, but typically eyes are one eye width apart, and typically the eyebrows end around the nostril areas, sometimes the ends of the nose, and same with the ends of the eyes. They also end at the ends of the nose. Usually lips, the end of the lips lines up with the middle of the eyes. This one's a little off, but most people do not have perfectly symmetrical faces. Those are general rules that you want to kind of use when you first start out drawing, just so you start out with the good basics of where everything is supposed to be placed. So if I lighten this picture here, we can kind of go over it better. Okay, so normally a good place to start when you're drawing a face, what I like to do is kind of start out with a circle, and then you kind of bring the jawline down. Normally what I do is I do more of a oval shape, and then you can go in and define the jawline as you go on. It's definitely important to stay with the basics at first. You don't want to get too detailed into something before you've laid everything out. So say you're drawing and you're like, oh, okay, I really want to draw the eyes right now. And then you start drawing like really detailed eyes, and then you're like, you still have a lot of other steps to go. It's good to get out the basics, even just shading, get the basics out first. That way it's easier to go back and edit any kind of mistakes you've made with anatomy. So, and then another good rule is just the line method, just to line right down the center of the face, and then if you kind of divide the face up into thirds, you've got the line for the eyes, line for the nose, and line for the mouth. So if I take this away, you can kind of see how it's sectioned off. Okay, and then we've got an angled face here. Now with this one, it's still do the circle, but then because you've got her head at a 3/4 view, you need to now develop the jawline. So typically a good way is not be too defined. Just do a basic line, and then a line like that. And again, the neck lines up right there. And again here, you can kind of see one eye width apart. Even at this angle, the eyes still line up with the nose. That one you can't see, it's because it's hidden. And then again, with the middle of the eye still would line up relative to the end of the mouth. So you still got the same lines that separate here with the different parts of the face. Still apply even when the head is turned. But it's just something you kind of have to get used to. And again, you can play around with this. You don't have to follow it precisely, but it's good to know. With this angle, it's much more different because it's almost more 2D. You're not seeing all of the features, you're just seeing half. Typically with this, I recommend a straight line down, an angle, again, middle of the eye. This one, you kind of got to fudge a little bit. You got the nose. And again, you've got the rules here, so that goes that line down her face. You've got the sections separated in exactly the same way as it's here. So that's sort of a less creative approach to drawing the face. Typically when you get more experience, you don't really need to start out with these guidelines, but sometimes it's even helpful if you notice something's a little wonky about your drawing. You can kind of use these methods to figure out maybe there's something that's off. And again, it's really good to reference real pictures as a way to build the library in your mind, get a good idea of what a face looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to be drawing away from the reference points, and I'm going to start my own face. I would recommend if you're drawing on paper or digitally, a light pencil or something along those lines, whatever you're most comfortable with, but it's good to always start out with lighter and build up to the darker if you're not too comfortable with drawing faces. So that's why it's super easy to see mistakes and erase. I'm just going to draw a circle, or sort of a circle. Even artists sometimes don't know how to draw perfect circles. And then I'm going to do an oval. And again, kind of a rough estimate of where the lines would go. And zoom in here. And you don't really have to do lines for the ears if they're not in view right away. I know for a while I hated drawing ears, so I usually would hide it with hair. But some people, now I actually do like drawing ears. Okay, so we've got a rough sketch here. I'm going to even go over that layer. So we know the eyes are going to kind of end around there. Now, drawing eyes can be difficult from different angles. You have to kind of remember that the eye is a perfect sphere that is inset into our head. So you've got, that's the eye, and then you've got the iris and the pupil. So when it's straight on, it's pretty easy to draw an eye. It's when you start angling that it can get pretty complicated the way the eyelid falls over the eye. So sometimes a good point of reference to try when you're not comfortable is drawing a circle first. And then drawing the insides of the eyes. And then you can go over it with the eyelids. With the eye, you just kind of want to start out with an almond shape. Just as a basic eye, nothing too fancy here. And with nose, usually what I like to do is I start out with the nostril. And then some people do like the triangle method, which is fine if that's not something you want to do. I personally have never done that, but it is a valid method. And I kind of just draw lines on the side, and then I define the middle a little bit. You can get rid of those extra lines. And then the lips. So the best thing to start out with is the ends, and then depending on how you want the shape, you just want something simple. Just do some lines. Leave a little part here for the Cupid's bow. And usually it's good to not define lips too much. You want to kind of leave that for shading later. And then I just do like a little line at the bottom here for the bottom of the lips. Now it looks kind of wonky now, but you gotta trust the process. Okay, and then for eyebrows, I usually just do lines and then develop them later. So we've got, you can kind of go back, define more features. And then the neck. I'm not going to get too crazy with the ears here. Now for eyelids. No two eyelids are the same, but a general rule for a straight-on look is like this, is a pretty visible eyelid. Now I'm not going to get too into the planes of the face. I think it's helpful to look at references like that. When you're just starting off, I think looking at references is the most important thing. You can kind of see the planes on a face if I go over here and I draw them. So you've got, what they'll often do is they'll do the triangles here, for the cheekbones, and then it goes inverted. It can look kind of wonky when you see it, and it's hard to understand fully. It's basically understanding the shadows and what light touches first. So obviously light is going to touch whatever is the most prominent. So her nose is where the light would touch. Her cheekbones, because they're higher up, would be touched first. Parts of the upper lip, because it's exposed. The chin, sometimes parts here, but for the most part, everything down here will be pretty shaded. And then right around here. And then again here. Parts of here will be more lit. And then shading here. But again, it definitely depends on where the light is coming from. With this, it's just a straight on light. It's actually kind of coming from the right a little bit, because she's got more dark features over here. But there's a few points of light on this image, so it's not as good for mapping out the planes. With this one, you've got really just one point of light, so you can see that a lot of the light is touching here, on her nose, above her lips, on the top of her chin, and then everything over here, and under here is quite shaded, since those are lower points on her face. So these are just basics for drawing. I will go more in depth on drawing faces in a future video, and shading as well. Thank you for watching.